Jake had always been good at noticing small details. It came with his job as a photographer. He spent his days looking for perfect moments, catching expressions when people thought nobody was watching. But what he discovered about his girlfriend, Lisa, on a random Tuesday morning in their new apartment was something completely different. They had been living together for exactly 3 weeks. Jake remembered because Lisa had marked it on their kitchen calendar with a small heart. She was, like that, finding joy in tiny milestones that most people would forget. That morning, like every morning since they moved in together, they sat at their small wooden table sharing coffee and toast. Jake was scrolling through his phone, checking emails from potential clients, when he heard the familiar sound of a pen hitting the floor. Lisa had been writing in her journal, something she did every morning without fail. The pen rolled under the table, and she pushed back her chair to get it. "Oops," she said with a little laugh. Jake glanced up from his phone just as Lisa bent down to reach for the pen. She was wearing her favorite yellow sundress, the one that made her look like sunshine itself. As she reached under the table, Jake found himself watching the graceful way she moved. There was something almost deliberate about it, like she was performing a small dance just for him. When Lisa straightened up, pen in hand, she caught his eye for just a moment. Her cheeks turned slightly pink, and she smiled before looking away. Quickly, Jake went back to his phone, thinking nothing of it. But then it happened again the next morning, and the morning after that. By the end of the week, Jake realized this wasn't just clumsiness. Lisa was dropping that pen on purpose. Each time, she would bend down in that same graceful way, and each time, she would steal a glance to see if he was watching. But here was the interesting part. She only looked when she thought he wasn't paying attention. Jake started to pay closer attention, but carefully. He learned to watch from the corner of his eye while pretending to read his phone or flip through a magazine, and the more he pretended not to look, the more opportunities Lisa seemed to create. She would drop her earring while getting ready for work, bending down slowly to pick it up from beside their bedroom mirror. She would reach for books on the bottom shelf of their bookcase when Jake was nearby, taking her time to find exactly what she was looking for. When they cooked dinner together, she would crouch down to get pots from the lower cabinet, always. When Jake was standing close enough to notice. At first, Jake thought maybe he was imagining things. But after 2 weeks of this pattern, he couldn't deny what was happening. Lisa was creating these moments on purpose, and she wanted him to notice, but only if he was being subtle about it. One evening, Jake decided to test his theory. Lisa was washing dishes at the sink, and she had dropped the sponge. As she bent down to pick it up, Jake turned to look at her directly, making it obvious he was watching. Lisa immediately stood up quickly, her face red with embarrassment, and she didn't make eye contact for the rest of the evening. That confirmed it. This was a game, but it had rules. Lisa wanted his attention, but she wanted it to feel natural, unforced. She didn't want to feel like she was being stared at or judged. She wanted to feel desired in a way that seemed spontaneous. Jake found himself fascinated by this discovery. He started to understand that Lisa had created this beautiful, wordless way of connecting with him. It wasn't about showing off or being vain. It was about feeling appreciated, feeling beautiful, feeling wanted by the person she loved most. The realization made Jake see Lisa in a completely new light. He began to notice how much thought she put into these small moments, the way she would time dropping her phone when he walked into the room, how she would find reasons to reach for things on high shelves when he was cooking, stretching up on her toes in a way that was both practical and elegant. Jake started to appreciate the artistry of it all. Lisa could make the simplest action, picking up a drop key, reaching for a book, adjusting her shoe, into something that made his heart skip a beat. She transformed ordinary moments into something special, something that belonged just to them. But the most beautiful part was how much Lisa seemed to enjoy the game herself. Jake would catch glimpses of her satisfied smile when she thought he had noticed her. She would have a little spring in her step, a brightness in her eyes that told him she felt beautiful and loved. Jake realized that somewhere along the way, many couples stopped seeing each other this way. They stopped trying to catch each other's attention. They stopped creating moments of attraction and playfulness. But Lisa was actively working to keep that spark alive between them. As Jake sat in their living room that evening, watching Lisa read a book on the couch, he felt incredibly lucky. Not just because his girlfriend was beautiful, but because she cared enough about their relationship to put effort into making him feel attracted to her every single day. When Lisa's bookmark fell to the floor and she bent down to get it, shooting him a quick glance to see if he was watching, Jake smiled to himself. He was definitely watching, and he planned to keep playing this wonderful game for as long as Lisa wanted to play it. This was just the beginning of understanding the secret language they had created. Together, a language spoken through glances and graceful movements, through the art of looking and being looked at. Once Jake understood what was happening, he became a student of Lisa's unspoken game. Every day brought new lessons about the delicate balance they were creating together. It was like learning a new language, one that was spoken through stolen glances and careful timing. The first rule Jake discovered was the most important one. He could never look too obviously. He learned this the hard way during their 4th week together. Lisa was getting ready for work, putting on her jewelry. At their bedroom mirror, she dropped her bracelet, and as she bent down to pick it up, Jake turned his full attention to her, watching openly with a big smile on his face. "What are you staring at?" Lisa asked, her voice suddenly shy and a little defensive. "Just admiring my beautiful girlfriend," Jake replied honestly. But instead of making Lisa happy, his direct attention seemed to make her uncomfortable. She quickly grabbed her bracelet and hurried out of the room. For the rest of that day, Lisa didn't create any of her usual moments. No drop pens, no reaching for low shelves, no graceful movements that seemed designed just for him. Jake realized he had broken something delicate. The magic of their game depended on the pretense that he wasn't really watching, that his appreciation was accidental rather than intentional. Lisa wanted to feel desired, but she also wanted to feel like she was earning that desire naturally. So Jake adjusted his approach. He learned to master the art of the peripheral glance, watching, while appearing to do something else. He would pretend to read his book while Lisa moved around their apartment, catching glimpses of her over the pages. He would seem focused on chopping vegetables while she reached into the lower cabinets, stealing looks while maintaining the fiction of distraction. The second rule Jake discovered was about timing. Lisa's little performances weren't random. They happened when she sensed his attention drifting, or when she felt like they needed a moment of connection. If Jake was too absorbed in work emails, Lisa would suddenly need to reach for something on the floor nearby. If they had been sitting quietly for too long, her pen would mysteriously slip from her fingers. Jake started to see these moments as Lisa's way of saying, "Hey, remember me? I'm here, and I want you to notice me." It wasn't needy or demanding. It was playful and sweet, like a gentle tap on the shoulder from someone who loved him. The game even extended beyond their apartment, which surprised Jake at first. During their first dinner party as a couple, Jake was deep in conversation with Lisa's friend Tom about photography techniques when he heard a familiar sound. Lisa's napkin had somehow fallen to the floor beside her chair. "Oh, clumsy me," Lisa said with that same little laugh she used at home. As she bent down to retrieve it, Jake caught her quick glance in his direction. Even surrounded by friends, even in the middle of other conversations, Lisa was still playing their private game. Jake felt a warm flutter in his chest, realizing that even in a crowded room, Lisa was thinking about their connection. At the grocery store the next weekend, Jake experienced another variation of their game. They were shopping together, Jake pushing the cart while Lisa checked items off their list. When Jake got distracted by a display of cameras in the electronics section, Lisa wandered over to the canned goods aisle. "Jake, can you help me find the tomato sauce?" she called out. When Jake found her, Lisa was crouched down, examining the bottom shelf with intense concentration. But Jake knew they had plenty of tomato sauce at home. Lisa was creating a reason for him to come over, a reason to be near her while she moved in that graceful way he had come to love. "I think this brand might be better," Lisa said, reaching for a can that was just slightly out of easy reach. Jake watched, pretending to consider. the various sauce options while actually admiring the elegant line of Lisa's neck as she stretched. When she stood up and caught his eye, her smile told him she knew exactly what had just happened. The third rule Jake learned was perhaps the most important. The game required his active participation. It wasn't enough for him to simply notice Lisa's movements. He had to respond in his own subtle way, letting her know that her efforts were appreciated. Without breaking the spell of pretended casualness, Jake developed his own signals. A slight smile when Lisa caught his eye. A gentle touch on her back as he passed by after she had created one of her moments. Sometimes he would bring her a cup of coffee, right after she had given him a particularly graceful performance, his way of saying thank you without words. He also learned to create opportunities for Lisa to play the game. He would ask her to help him reach things from high shelves, knowing she would make the simple action into something beautiful. He would leave interesting books on low tables, giving Lisa reasons to bend down and browse through them when he was nearby. Jake began to understand that this wasn't just about physical attraction, though that was certainly part of it. This was about attention, appreciation, and the daily choice to keep romance alive in their relationship. Lisa was working to make sure Jake never took her for granted, and in return, she never wanted to take his attention for granted either. What amazed Jake most was how this simple game had made him more aware of Lisa in every moment. He found himself noticing things he might have missed before. The way she moved through their kitchen, the careful attention she paid to how she looked, the little effort she made to catch his eye throughout the day. Their game had become a beautiful way of saying I love you without words. A daily reminder that they chose each other not just once, but over and over again in small, perfect moments. After weeks of playing their silent game, Jake began to understand that what was happening between him and Lisa went much deeper than simple flirtation. Late one evening, as he watched Lisa carefully organize her bookshelf, dropping her bookmark, just as he walked by, Jake realized this wasn't just about getting attention. This was Lisa's way of asking questions that she couldn't put into words. The next morning, Jake decided to dig deeper. As Lisa was getting ready for work, applying lip gloss in their bathroom mirror, he asked her something that had been on his mind. Lisa, can I ask you something personal? She turned to face him, her expression curious but slightly guarded. Of course. What's up? Do you remember feeling invisible when you were younger? Lisa's hand froze halfway to her lip gloss. The question had clearly caught her off guard. She set down the tube and looked at Jake with surprise. How did you know to ask that? She said quietly. Jake sat down on the edge of their bed, gesturing for Lisa to join him. I've been watching you, really watching you. Not just the game we play, but the why behind it. You seem like someone who spent a lot of time feeling unseen. Lisa was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer than usual. I was the middle kid in my family. My older sister was the smart one, straight A's, full scholarship to college, everything perfect. My younger brother was the baby, the one who got all the attention just for being cute. And me, I was just there. Jake reached for her hand. Tell me more. At family dinners, my parents would ask my sister about her achievements and fuss over my brother's latest drawing or soccer game. When it was my turn to talk, they would listen politely, but I could see their minds were already somewhere else. I learned that if I wanted to be noticed, I had to work for it. Suddenly, so many things made sense to Jake. The careful way Lisa moved when she knew he was nearby, the timing of her dropped items and graceful stretches, the quick glances too. See if her efforts had been successful. Lisa had learned early in life that being noticed required effort, strategy, and perfect timing. So our little game, Jake said carefully, it's not really about being playful, is it? Lisa shook her head, looking a little embarrassed. Not entirely. I mean, it is playful, and I do enjoy it. But you're right, it's also about needing to know that you still see me, that I'm still interesting to you, that you still choose to notice me even when you don't have to. Jake felt his heart break a little. Here was this amazing woman who had learned to perform for love, who had been trained to believe that attention was something she had to earn, rather than something she deserved simply by existing. Lisa, he said, lifting her chin so she would look at him. I need you to understand something. I don't notice you because you drop things or reach for books on low shelves. I notice you because you're impossible not to notice. You light up every room you walk into. Lisa's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. Really, really. But I also want you to know that I love our game. Not because you're performing for me, but because it shows me how much you care about keeping us connected. Most couples stop trying to catch each other's attention after a while. You never want us to become one of those couples, and neither do I from that conversation. Jake began to see their daily interactions in a completely new light. When Lisa would drop her pen during their morning coffee, he understood she was asking, "Do you still think I'm beautiful in the morning light?" When she would reach for something on a high shelf while he was cooking, she was asking, "Am I still graceful to you? Do I still catch your eye?" And Jake's pretended casual glances, his subtle smiles, his gentle touches, these were his way of answering back, "Yes, always yes, you are beautiful, you are graceful, you absolutely catch my eye, and I choose to see you every single day." Jake also began to understand something important about himself. He had grown up in a family where love was assumed but rarely expressed. His parents loved each other, but they had fallen into comfortable routine where they barely looked at each other anymore. They would sit at the dinner table, each absorbed in their phones, taking their connection for granted. Jake realized that Lisa's game was protecting them from that fate by creating these small moments of attraction and appreciation every day. Lisa was making sure they never stopped seeing each other as desirable, interesting, worth pursuing. One evening, as they were watching a movie together, Jake noticed that Lisa had gotten unusually quiet. She wasn't creating her usual opportunities for connection, wasn't dropping things or stretching gracefully. She seemed lost in thought. "What's on your mind?" Jake asked, pausing the movie. "I was just thinking about my parents," Lisa said. "They love each other, but they've been married for 30 years. And I can't remember the last time I saw my dad really look at my mom. Not just glance at her, but really see her the way you see me." Jake pulled Lisa closer to him. "Is that what you're afraid of? That we'll stop seeing each other?" "Sometimes," Lisa admitted. "I watch older couples at restaurants, sitting across from each other in complete silence, both on their phones. I don't want that to be us." "It won't be," Jake said firmly. "You know why. Why? Because you won't let it happen. Every morning when you drop that pen, every time you reach for something just out of easy reach, every graceful movement you make, you're fighting for us. You're making sure we stay connected." Lisa smiled, and Jake could see the relief in her eyes. "You really don't mind the game? I mean, you don't think it's silly or attention-seeking?" "Lisa, I think it's the smartest thing anyone has ever done for a relationship. You figured out how to keep romance alive in the middle of ordinary life. You've turned everyday moments into reasons to appreciate each other." That night, as they got ready for bed, Lisa dropped her hairbrush. As she bent down to pick it up, she caught Jake's eye and winked. They both started laughing, and Jake realized that their game had evolved into something even more beautiful. Not just a way of seeking attention, but a celebration of the attention they freely gave each other. Everything changed on a Friday afternoon when Jake got an unexpected text message. He was at work, editing photos for a wedding client, when his phone buzzed with a message from his friend Mike. "Hey man, guess who's back in town? Rachel is visiting for the weekend. We're all meeting up Saturday for drinks. You and Lisa should come." Jake stared at the message for a long moment. Rachel, his ex-girlfriend from college. The woman he had dated for 2 years before they broke up when she moved across the country for a job. They had ended things on good terms, staying friends on social media, but they hadn't seen each other in person for over 3 years. When Jake got home that evening, he found Lisa in their kitchen, making dinner. She was reaching into the lower cabinet for a pot, and as usual, she glanced over to see if he was watching. Jake smiled and gave her the subtle acknowledgement she was looking for. But his mind was distracted. "Lisa, Mike invited us to drinks tomorrow night. Some of our old friends will be there." "That sounds fun," Lisa said. standing up with the pot in her hands. Anyone I know. Jake hesitated for a moment. Well, Rachel will be there too. My ex from college. She's visiting from California. Lisa's expression didn't change immediately, but Jake noticed she gripped the pot handle a little tighter. Oh, okay. That's fine. It'll be nice to meet her. But Jake could tell it wasn't entirely fine. That evening, Lisa seemed different. She dropped her pen during their morning coffee routine, but when she bent down to get it, her movements seemed forced, less natural than usual. At dinner, she reached for something on the bottom shelf, but instead of her usual graceful motion, she seemed to be trying too hard to be graceful. Saturday evening arrived, and they met their friends at a popular bar downtown. Rachel was already there when they arrived, and Jake had to admit she looked great. She had always been confident and outgoing, and those qualities seemed even stronger now. Jake, Rachel called out, giving him a warm hug. You look amazing. And you must be Lisa, she said, turning to Jake's girlfriend with a bright smile. I've heard so much about you. Lisa smiled politely, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. Throughout the evening, he watched as Rachel naturally became the center of attention in their group. She had funny stories about her job in California, interesting observations about the differences between East and West Coast life, and that easy laugh that Jake remembered from their college days. What made things worse was that Rachel seemed to be unconsciously doing some of the same things Lisa did, but without any subtlety. When she dropped her phone, she bent down to get it in a way that was clearly meant to be noticed. When she reached across the table for snacks, she made sure everyone could see her movements. But unlike Lisa's delicate game, Rachel's actions felt obvious and intentional. Jake found himself genuinely uninterested in Rachel's display. He had eyes only for Lisa. But Lisa seemed to misunderstand his distraction. She probably thought he was trying not to look at Rachel the same way he pretended not to look at her. The real problem started when Lisa began competing with Rachel's obvious tactics. When Rachel dropped her phone, Lisa immediately dropped her napkin. When Rachel stretched to reach something, Lisa found her own reason to stretch. But Lisa's usual natural grace was gone, replaced by movements that seemed calculated and desperate. Jake watched his girlfriend with a breaking heart. Lisa was trying so hard to recapture his attention that she had lost the beautiful, natural quality that made their game so special. She was performing instead of simply being herself. The evening got worse when their friend Mike suggested they all go to another bar. As they were leaving, Rachel positioned herself next to Jake as they walked down the street. It's so great to see you again, Rachel said, touching Jake's arm. I've missed our conversations. Jake was polite but distant, but he noticed Lisa walking a few steps behind them, looking miserable. When they got to the second bar, Lisa excused herself to go to the bathroom and didn't come back for 15 minutes. Jake found her outside, sitting on a bench in the bar's patio area, looking up at the stars. Hey, he said softly, sitting down beside her. You okay? Lisa didn't look at him. She's really pretty, she said quietly. Lisa, and confident and funny. I can see why. You dated her for 2 years. Jake turned his body toward Lisa completely. Can I tell you something? I spent the whole evening watching you, not her. And you know what I noticed? Lisa finally looked at him. What? You stopped being yourself. The Lisa I fell in love with doesn't try to compete with anyone. She doesn't perform for attention. She just is. And that's what makes her incredible. Lisa's eyes filled with tears. I just felt so ordinary next to her, like maybe you were remembering what it was like to be with someone more exciting. Lisa, listen to me. Rachel is exciting the way a fireworks show is exciting, loud and bright and impossible to ignore. But you know what happens to fireworks. They burn out fast and leave nothing behind. You're not fireworks, Lisa. You're like sunrise. Beautiful, gentle, something I want to wake up to every single day for the rest of my life. Lisa smiled through her tears, but Jake could see she was still shaken. The walk home was quiet, and that night, Lisa didn't play their usual game. She got ready for bed without dropping anything. without creating any moments for Jake to pretend not to notice. She moved through their bedroom like she was trying to be invisible. Jake lay awake that night, listening to Lisa's breathing and realizing how much he had come to depend on their silent game. Without it, something essential was missing from their connection. He understood now that their game wasn't just Lisa asking for attention. It was both of them, actively choosing to stay attracted to each other to keep their relationship alive, with small moments of appreciation and desire. The absence of their game made Jake realize its true importance. It wasn't about Lisa being insecure or needy. It was about both of them refusing to let their relationship become ordinary, routine, taken for granted. It was about the daily choice to keep seeing each other as worth pursuing. As Jake finally fell asleep, he was already planning how to show Lisa that no one, not Rachel, not anyone, could ever make him stop wanting to play their beautiful, private game together. The next morning, Jake woke up with a plan. Lisa was still sleeping beside him, her face peaceful but somehow sad even in sleep. The events from the night before had shaken something fundamental between them, and Jake knew he had to fix it, but not by going back to their old game. Something had shifted, and Jake realized that maybe it was time for their relationship to evolve too. Lisa woke up slowly, and Jake could immediately see the difference in her. She moved carefully around their bedroom, getting dressed without any of her usual grace. When she dropped her earring while putting on her jewelry, she picked it up quickly, efficiently, without even glancing to see if Jake was watching. "Good morning, beautiful," Jake said, meaning every word. Lisa gave him a small smile but didn't meet his eyes. "Morning. I'll start the coffee." As Lisa headed to the kitchen, Jake made a decision that went against everything their game had taught him. Instead of pretending to be distracted, instead of stealing glances from the corner of his eye, he was going to look at Lisa directly. He was going to let her see exactly how much he appreciated her. Lisa was at the coffee maker, reaching up to get mugs from the upper cabinet. In the past, Jake would have pretended to read his phone while watching her stretch up on her toes. But this morning, he walked right up behind her and openly admired the elegant line of her neck, the graceful way her fingers reached for the handles. "Jake, what are you doing?" Lisa asked, turning around and finding him standing close, watching her with obvious appreciation. "I'm looking at my girlfriend," Jake said simply. "Is that okay?" Lisa seemed confused. "But you're not supposed to look directly. That's not how our game works." "Maybe it's time for our game to change," Jake said gently. Over the next few days, Jake continued his new approach. When Lisa bent down to pick up something she had dropped, Jake didn't pretend to be busy with something else. He watched her openly, smiled when she caught his eye, and let her see exactly how beautiful he found her. At first, Lisa seemed uncomfortable with this direct attention. She was used to their dance of pretended casualness, and Jake's obvious appreciation felt too intense, too revealing. But gradually, something began to shift. On Wednesday evening, they were cooking dinner together when Lisa dropped a wooden spoon. As she bent down to get it, Jake openly watched her movement, and when she straightened up, he was smiling at her. "You're really not going to pretend you weren't looking?" Lisa asked. But there was a hint of amusement in her voice. "No," Jake said. "I was definitely looking. You're gorgeous, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise anymore." Lisa's cheeks turned pink, but she was smiling now. "This feels weird." Good weird or bad weird, Lisa considered this. Different weird. But maybe good different. The real breakthrough came on Friday night. They were at home, Lisa reading a book on their couch while Jake worked on his laptop nearby. Lisa's bookmark slipped from her fingers and fell to the floor. In the past, she would have bent down gracefully to retrieve it while stealing a glance to see if Jake was watching. But this time, Lisa looked directly at Jake before she bent down to get the bookmark. Their eyes met, and they both smiled. Lisa's movement was just as graceful as always, but now there was no pretense, no game of hidden glances. She moved beautifully because that's who she was. And Jake watched because he couldn't help himself. "Much better," Jake said when Lisa straightened up. "You think so? I think we've graduated from our game to something even better." That weekend, Jake suggested they invite some friends over for dinner, including Mike, but specifically not Rachel. As Lisa moved around their kitchen, preparing food and setting the table, Jake found himself openly appreciating every movement she made. When she reached for plates on a high shelf, he didn't pretend to be busy with something else. When she bent down to check something in the oven, he openly admired her grace. But the most beautiful part was that Lisa began to move with even more natural confidence. She wasn't performing for Jake's attention anymore. She had it openly and honestly. She was simply being herself, and that self was magnificent. Their friends noticed the change immediately. "You just seem different," Mike commented during dinner. "More connected, I guess." Jake and Lisa exchanged a look across the table. They were more connected. They had moved beyond the need for games and pretense into something deeper and more honest. Later that evening, after their friends had gone home, Lisa was washing dishes when she dropped the sponge. As she bent down to pick it up, she looked directly at Jake, who was openly watching her from across the kitchen. "I have a confession," Lisa said, standing up with the sponge in her hand. "What's that?" "I kind of miss our games sometimes." There was something exciting about the secret glances and the pretending. Jake walked over to her, taking the sponge from her hands and setting it aside. "Who says we have to give up all the excitement?" "What do you mean?" Jake leaned in close to Lisa's ear. "What if I told you that watching you move around our kitchen still makes my heart race? What if I told you that every time you reach for something or bend down to pick something up, I still can't look away?" Lisa's breath caught. "Really, really. The only difference is that now I don't have to pretend I'm not completely crazy about you." Lisa smiled, and Jake could see the relief and happiness in her eyes. "So we can still be playful. We can be anything we want to be. But we don't need games to keep my attention. You have it completely, always." That night, as they got ready for bed, Lisa dropped her hair tie. As she bent down to pick it up, she caught Jake's eye and winked. They both started laughing, and Jake realized that their relationship had found its perfect balance. They could still be playful, still create moments of appreciation and attraction. But now it came from a place of confidence and security rather than need and uncertainty. Lisa no longer had to earn Jake's attention. She had it freely, completely, permanently. 6 months later, they were in that same kitchen, and Lisa dropped her coffee mug. As she bent down to clean up the spilled coffee, she found Jake watching her with the same appreciation he had shown from the very beginning. "Still watching me, I see," Lisa said, smiling up at him. "Always," Jake replied. "But now you know it." And that, Jake realized, was the most beautiful part of all. Their game had evolved from a way of asking for love into a way of celebrating the love they already shared. They looked at each other not because they had to earn attention, but because they couldn't imagine looking anywhere else.